I'm going to break. I'm going to break with tradition this morning and stand here for a little bit. I have a few things to say. One of them is, well, both are enormously important. I'm not going to say it's a beautiful day in Albany because, well, it's not. It is what it is. Before we start the meeting, I wanted to take a minute to recall September 11th, 2001. For some reason, that tragedy, those tragedies, have greater meaning for me this year, and I have not been able to figure out why. It's top of mind today, though, of course, because the ceremonies have begun, and we're probably well into the ceremonies. 2,996 or 97 people died on that day. In a matter of minutes, most of them. Citizens of 78 countries died that day in New York and Pennsylvania and D.C. 2,763 of them, including the terrorists, died at the World Trade Center. 189 people, including the terrorists, died at the Pentagon when the American Airlines plane, I think it was Flight 77.
Okay.
Well, hi there.
Mayor, we're not ready.
Morning.
Okay.
Okay, we'll call you. We'll call you.
And 44 people, including the terrorists, died in Pennsylvania when Flight 93 slammed into the ground. The governor has asked this morning that the students, teachers, and administrators of every public school in New York, I read this on the internet yesterday, so it may or may not be true. Every public school in New York pause this morning to remember and to honor the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice on September 11th, 2001, as well as those who served as first responders whose sacrifices appear to continue. I just thought I'd ask us to take a few seconds of silence. All right, thank you for that. Somber beginning to a meeting where we have to conduct a lot of business. But I'm going to take the liberty, since I've got the microphone, to do something even before we start to do the business of the day. I'm going to take a few minutes to celebrate some of the accomplishments of our President CEO, who is attending his last meeting with this board as President CEO. And I think he'll have some things to say later on about some of those accomplishments, and hopefully we'll have high praise for this board. Gerard P. Bushell. I've never asked you what the P stands for, and I'm not asking now. I want to take a few guesses at it after this meeting. So
Pugnacious.
Pugnacious. It has been and will remain, in my view, Gerard, that you were exactly what this authority needed when you joined us nearly 5 years ago. Complicated story, interestingly enough. DASNY, a very well-known, popular authority, tremendous reputation. We were running into problems. We were not as well defined as we thought we were, turns out. And a lot of time was spent rejiggering that. Gerard comes in and comes to the conclusion after a short analysis, actually, can be a lengthy analysis later on, that we had a problem that we had to fix. The problem was that we were losing clients. Now, the analysis took us to a conclusion that was difficult for some of us around this table, actually, to accept. It turns out we were correct. We'd become staid. We were not We knew we were good at what we did. Everybody who dealt with us knew we were good at what we did. But we were not serving all the needs of all of our clients. We were not paying attention to the immediacy of some of our clients' needs and interests. And for the first time, at least to my knowledge, you came to the conclusion that we had lost the ability to be facile. We were not moving quickly when there was no reason for us not to, except there were reasons for us not to. We also, for the first time, prior to your arrival, faced real competition. And that competition should have been causing us to prance and dance a lot faster than we did. But we were dazzling. We knew that we were good at what we did. But it proved to be untrue that if you build it, they will come. You started your analysis within weeks of the time that you got here. You looked at our workforce, you looked at our policies and procedures, our strategic planning skills and models, the views of our best clients regarding our ability to meet their needs. Nothing was reviewed in a vacuum. Everything that you did, every concern that you raised was in the context of every other concern that you raised. So the way to fix the machine, I think the human resources people call that silos. You figured out that we were very siloed, and we didn't have to be. And indeed, the silos were causing us problems that we needed to resolve, or change the way we did business completely, change our business. I wish we had time to talk about that in a lot more detail, because there's a lot to say about what you did during that. A lot to remember about the difficulties of facing the folks who here believed they were good at what they did, but didn't recognize on their own that they could be better. In the period since you have been here, a lot of that has changed. Most of it has changed. You have, and I'll list a few things. You have paid attention to who we were and what we were, and by this time, it was who you were and what you were. So you had a personal interest in it. You produced one DASNY. You produced revisions in many of our construction and financing policies and procedures. Your efforts, your attention resulted in the recreation of our strategic planning models, the creation of a succession planning model. You improve relationships with the folks who provide professional services to DASNY, many of whom are here today. You produced an efficient form of design build. You reached out to this board often, and most often with great success, as you implemented the plans you wanted to put in place. Simultaneously, you reached out to our clients. For the first time in DASNY's history that I'm aware of, staff went to the client to find out how the client might want to see us do this better. Now, I don't know that that's correct. I believe it is. I don't know of any case in DASNY's history where our leadership actually went out to seek business, to literally market and sell what it is that we did. You did that. And it was, I think, again, the first time that it happened. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Gerard himself. He is a man of prodigious language skills. Gerard has a fair amount to say, and most often he says it. He has a skill that I wish I had. He can select a word that conveys precisely the thought that he wants the listener to hear. Most of us fish around for those words when we're talking to somebody. You don't. You seem to be able to go directly there. It's maddening sometimes. but you do it really well. You do something else that I think everybody here would agree with. You have the ability to be very persistent, and at the same time, very consistent. And that's not a skill that in my experience, a skill that a lot of folk have. Persistence causes you to change what you're thinking because people are responding to you poorly. And so you change. You don't. It's very interesting. I think you have a great passion for this thing, and I think it's evidenced in the work day-to-day, the work you have done. Built strong bonds with your staff, people who believe in you, who want to make sure that they satisfy your need to see the way the job's done. And I appreciate that on your behalf. You have a gift of words. And there have been times when you have gifted to us a few more of those words than we were interested in having. But they were always well intended. Thank you for that. We don't know where you're going. The information about your next career has been embargoed. But we know that you're a person with great talent. And we know that those talents are very likely to be applicable as you pursue your new career. And I don't think in my mind, there's no question. DASNY is a better place. And now I get to do, I'm Indian, I get to do what I call the ships. Thank you for your colleagueship. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your leadership. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sir. It's a pleasure. All on the record.
I appreciate it. It's a pleasure. Thank you, everyone. You know, I'm speechless. I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, you got your report today. I knew we were going to say the same thing. All right. I told some of you, we're 20 minutes into this now, and we started 10 minutes late, and I apologize to all of you, because some of you have to leave. We're going to open the meeting, do the minutes, and the Finance Committee report, and then we're going to go into executive session. We'll make that session as brief as we can, but we're going to do the session before we do the financials. So you've all had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any suggested revisions, changes, did we make any mistakes? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve? Wellington, thank you. Is there a second? Tracy, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. As there are none opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Mr. Romsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance Committee met yesterday afternoon up in Albany. We addressed 3 issues. One was the Rochester Institute of Technology. The other was the PIT bond, and the final one was the Memorial Sloan Kettering. We recommend that all of those often be adopted at today's meeting. We also adopted the meeting minutes from the July meeting of the Finance Committee. Thank you, Mike. I saw you going.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Questions?
Thank you.
Then I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session to talk about financial and credit history of particular corporations, proposed pending or current litigation, and the employment history of particular persons or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of particular persons. May I have that motion? Thank you. Is there a second? All, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We are in executive session. And if you would... thank you very much. The record will show that we have just left an executive session during which no decisions were made other than to return to the public session. We will now go on to what is really the third item on the agenda. Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Behind tab 3 is the Rochester Institute of Technology Transaction Summary Update with co-bond counsel Cornelia Cahill, Barclay Damon, and Justin Marouse Law Group, and Stephen Crozier presenting.
Thank you.
The board is being asked to adopt the necessary documents for fixed and variable rate tax exempt and taxable bonds with a not to exceed amount of $375 million on behalf of the Rochester Institute of Technology. At DASNY's June board meeting, the members adopted a resolution to proceed for an amount not to exceed $230 million. The purposes included various construction and renovation costs, the refinancing of a taxable bank loan, and refunding DASNY's RIT Series 2010 bonds. Since the resolution to proceed, the Institute has requested that DASNY also approve a financing which will include the refunding of DASNY's RIT Series 2012 bonds. To accommodate the refunding of the Series 2012 bonds, staff is requesting an increase in the not-to-exceed amount to $375 million. The Series 2012 bonds are not callable until July 1st, 2022, and cannot currently be refunded with tax-exempt bonds. Therefore, the 2012 refunding bonds are expected to be sold on a taxable basis. The Series 2012 refunding is expected to result in net present value savings of approximately $13 million, or 9.5% of the bonds being refunded. As part of the overall plan of finance, RIT anticipates issuing up to $30 million of the issuance through a private placement with M&T Bank or affiliates as the purchaser. Private placement bonds are expected to have a variable rate of interest with a 7-year hold period and a 30-year principal amortization. Private placement bonds are expected to be used on new money projects and will be drawdown bonds. The balance of the proposed financing is expected to be issued through fixed-rate negotiated sales. It's anticipated that there will be 2 series of fixed-rate tax-exempt bonds and 1 series of fixed-rate taxable bonds. One fixed-rate tax-exempt series is expected to finance approximately $120 million of the new money projects and refinance the taxable bank loan. The other fixed-rate tax-exempt series is expected to be used to refund the Series 2010 bonds. As you may recall from June, the Series 2010 refunding bonds are expected to have a full delivery, whereby the bonds are expected to price in September and close on or after April 3rd, 2020, when the issue qualifies as a current refunding. The fixed-rate taxable bonds are expected to be used to refund the Series 2012 bonds, which I discussed earlier. Moody's published the rating of A1 on the bonds being sold publicly. The TEPR hearing was held on August 30th. Secret filing has been completed, and PACB provided its original approval on June 19th. However, the resolution needs to be amended to accommodate the Series 2012 refunding, and we're anticipating the amended PACB approval this afternoon. Take any questions?
Why don't we wait until Christine and Connie give them the presentation?
Surely. Good morning. You have before you for your consideration a new general resolution and 4 proposed series resolutions authorizing the issuance of up to $375 million of bonds for RIT. The general resolution is a new resolution, and the 4 series of bonds to be issued in 2019 and 2020 will be the first series of bonds under this new general resolution. DASNY has previously adopted other general resolutions for RIT, but at the request of RIT, we're doing a new general resolution to provide the institution with flexibility to select principal payment dates in a bond series certificate or future series resolutions. Prior general resolutions only allowed for July 1 principal payment dates. The general resolution authorizes DASNY to issue multiple series of bonds to finance or refinance the institution's capital project. As is typical, DASNY will loan the proceeds of each issue to the institution and will enter into 1 or more loan agreements. Each series of bonds will be separately secured by the revenues pledged to such series, by the funds and accounts established for the series, and by any other security referenced in a bond series certificate or series resolution.
As previously discussed by Steve, the proposed bonds will finance or refinance the institution's capital projects. Proceeds of the bonds will also finance the refunding of all or a portion of Series 2010 and Series 2012 refunded bonds, the institution's outstanding taxable line of credit, and costs of issuance. The Series 2019A and Series 2020A bonds are expected to be issued as tax-exempt, unenhanced fixed-rate bonds. The Series 2019B bonds are expected to be issued as taxable, unenhanced fixed-rate bonds to advance refund of the Series 2012 refunded bonds. The Series 2019C bonds are expected to be issued as tax-exempt, unenhanced variable rate bonds and are expected to be issued as drawdown bonds. The Series 2019C bonds will be privately placed with M&T Bank or its affiliate. The Series 2020A bonds are expected to be issued as forward delivery bonds to refund the Series 2010 refunded bonds at their earliest redemption date in 2020. The bonds will be special obligations of DASNY payable solely from revenues pledged to the bonds, which are primarily payments made under the applicable loan agreements. Payment of each series of bonds is secured by the pledge and assignment made by the general resolution of the applicable revenues and the monies and investments held in funds and accounts established by the general resolution and each applicable series resolution.
In accordance with your financing guidelines for independent institutions, the 2019 C bonds, which are going to be privately placed, will contain restrictions on the beneficial ownership and transfer of the bonds. Specifically, ownership will be limited to qualified institutional buyers, and M&T or its affiliate will qualify as such. It's expected that, as has been mentioned, those bonds will be issued as drawdown bonds, and that M&T will make an initial advance of the installment price of the bonds on the date of issuance.
As described in our letter, the series resolutions delegate to various officers the power, among others, to set the terms of the bonds and to establish funds and accounts to be maintained by the trustee. The series resolutions also authorize the preparation, execution, and delivery as appropriate of customary documents. The Series 2019 A bonds and Series 2019 B bonds and the Series 2020 A bonds are expected to be sold on a negotiated basis to RBC Capital pursuant to a bond purchase agreement in customary form. The Series 2019 C bonds are expected to be sold to M&T in a private sale pursuant to a bond placement agreement in customary form. We'll take questions at this time.
Are there questions? Steve, Justine? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Carol, thank you very much. Is there a second? Wellington, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Is there none opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And again, sorry for the delay.
Not a problem.
Behind tab 4 is the personal income tax revenue bond program single approval transaction summary with bond counsel Eileen Heitzler, Laura Harrington and Sutcliffe, and Natalie Pearson Farrar, Golden Holly James, and Matthew Burton presented.
Welcome. Natalie, I know you've been in the room before, but I don't know that you've been at the table.
No, I haven't.
Welcome. Good to
A
have
little
you.
intimidating.
Only good. Matthew?
Good morning, everyone. The board is being asked to authorize the issuance of a series of tax-exempt variable rate refunding bonds issued in an amount of approximately $79 million. With the final maturity no later than the final maturity of refunded bonds, which is March 15th, 2033. The bonds will be sold on a negotiated basis under the Personal Income Tax Revenue Bond Program. Proposed bonds will be issued to refund the New York State Housing Finance Agency State Personal Income Tax Revenue Bonds, 2005 Series C bonds, otherwise known as the HFA bonds. These HFA bonds were issued as variable rate demand bonds, and JP Morgan Chase Bank provided a standby bond purchase agreement, which we also refer to as a liquidity facility, whereby the bank agreed to purchase the HFA bonds, tendered or deemed tendered for purchase and not remarketed. At the time of the issuance, HFA entered into a synthetic fixed rate swap with JP Morgan Chase Bank that matures March 15, 2033, which corresponds to the final maturity date of the HFA bonds. The Division of Budget has requested that DASNY refund the HFA bonds with variable rate demand bonds and take on the corresponding synthetic fixed rate swap with JP Morgan Chase Bank to DASNY in order to streamline the state's debt portfolio. And just to touch on that, DOB, or the Division of Budget, recently rolled out a new automated debt service process in their new SFS system, so less authorities participate, and this makes it much more efficient. After this transaction, DASNY and ESD have the majority of variable rate debt, which aligns with the state current debt issuance approach of only using two primary debt issuers. Again, DASNY and ESD. Other than the pricing, all of the terms of the existing HFA bonds will remain the same. The only change is that DASNY will now be the issuer, and it should be noted that there are no savings attributable to this refunding. Under the Personal Income Tax Revenue Bond Program, the bonds will be paid by the semiannual payments made pursuant to the financing agreement between DASNY and the state, and the bonds are secured by a set-aside of 50% of the personal income tax revenues collected pursuant to statute and 50% of the receipts of the employer compensation expense tax, with both taxes deposited in the revenue bond tax fund. The current debt service coverage on all outstanding state personal income tax bonds is 6.4 times. And just to touch on the swap, DASNY, on behalf of the state, will be assuming and paying the fixed swap rate of 3.3355%. DASNY will be receiving 65% of LIBOR from the swap counterparty, which is JP Morgan Chase. And then DASNY, again, on behalf of the state, will be making the variable rate bond payment. And just to note, there was a handout as we have now excluded the state bond issuance charge from the sources and uses. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Eileen now.
Thank you, please.
So I was going to briefly describe the plan of finance. I think that mostly covered, and Natalia will talk about the authorization for the terms of the bonds. But just briefly, the PIT bonds are issued under the DASNY General Resolution for general purpose personal income tax bonds, and then supplemental resolutions authorizing each series of bonds or multiple series of bonds. The authorized purposes for which the bonds may be issued include any of the purposes for which DASNY may issue state-supported debt, including refunding debt. And I mentioned that includes, in this particular case, it's to refund HFA's bonds and basically to shift the HFA deal over to DASNY. So they'll be expected to, while the authorization is broader, it's expected to be variable rate bonds. There's a standby bond purchase security from JP Morgan, and the swap that has existed on these bonds will be shifted to DASNY in what's referred to as a novation. DASNY is authorized to have a tender interest swap pursuant to Article 5D of the state finance law for state-supported swaps. And the resolution authorizes the novation of the swap as well as delegating the authority to enter into the related agreements for that.
Okay, I'm going to talk briefly, hopefully, about the mechanics of the deal. There are three different authorizing documents at play here. First is the general purpose PIT bond resolution, which was adopted in 2009. Under Article 5C of the New York State Finance Law, the authority can issue PIT bonds to finance or refinance certain authorized purposes through the issuance of state-supported debt. The general purpose PIT bond resolution allows the authority to issue PIT bonds pursuant to supplemental resolutions that are adopted. So the PIT supplemental resolution 2019-2 under consideration today authorizes the authority to issue the 2019-2 PIT bonds in one or more series or subseries at one or more times in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $85 million. Although it is anticipated that all the bonds will be issued as variable rate demand bonds, all or a portion of the bonds may also be issued as fixed rate bonds, convertible bonds, capital appreciation bonds, and/or deferred income bonds. The 2019-2 PIT bonds may be sold at a public or private sale on a negotiated basis or through competitive bidding, and may be consolidated into a single series with other PIT bonds. PIT Supplemental Resolution 2019-2 delegates to various officers of the authority the power to determine the terms of the PIT bonds, including but not limited to the following. The principal amount, provided that it does not exceed the authorized $85 million. The principal amount that can be issued as tax-exempt bonds, and the principal amount to be issued as taxable bonds, if any. The date or dates on which the bonds will mature, provided that the final maturity of the bonds will not be later than March 15th, 2033. Whether the bonds will bear interest at fixed or variable rates, and the rate or rates at which the bonds will bear interest under certain conditions, provided that the true interest cost of any PIT bonds issued as fixed rate bonds and the initial interest rate of any bonds issued as variable rate bonds not exceed 7.5% if issued as tax exempt bonds and 10% if issued as taxable bonds. But like Eileen said, they're expected to be a variable rate. Whether the bonds are sold as a public or private sale on a negotiated basis or through competitive bidding, the underwriter or underwriters, if sold on a negotiated basis, purchase price to be paid by the underwriters. if sold on a negotiated basis, provided that it is not less than 90% of the principal amount of the bonds issued. The redemption provisions, including the dates and prices, subject to certain conditions which are outlined in the supplemental resolution, and the provisions relating to any credit facilities to be entered into in connection with bonds. The supplemental resolution also authorizes various officers of the authority to prepare, execute, and deliver all documents necessary, convenient, or desirable in connection with the sale and issuance of the 2019 PIT bonds, the refunding of the bonds to be refunded, and the novation of the interest rate exchange agreement from HFA to the authority, including the following: preliminary official statements, final official statements, bond purchase agreements, agreements to provide continuing disclosure to ensure that the underwriters can comply with SEC Rule 15C212, agreements providing for credit enhancement and liquidity, agreements with respect to the determination of the variable rate and the remarketing of tendered bonds, agreements relating to the interest rate exchange agreement novation that Eileen discussed, and any other documents necessary. And the third authorizing document at play here is the PIT financing agreement. Pursuant to the general PIT bond resolution, the authority entered into a PIT financing agreement with the director of the Division of the Budget to provide for payment by the state of debt service on all PIT bonds. The PIT financing agreement obligates the state to make payments at times and in amounts sufficient to pay when due the principal, interest, and sinking fund installments related to all outstanding PIT bonds, as well as to make payments on related interest exchange agreements, and here payments with respect to PIT bonds purchased by J.P. Morgan Chase under the standby bond purchase agreement. All PIT bonds issued are special obligations of the authority, secured by payments to be received by the authority under the financing agreement. These payments are derived from and payable to the extent of amounts available in a revenue bond tax fund established by Section 92Z of Article 6 of the New York State Finance Law. As a result of certain changes in 2018, this tax fund receives a statutorily allocated 50% of the state's PIT receipts and 50% of the state's employer compensation expense program receipts. The PIT financing agreement provides that the state's obligation to make payments on PIT bonds are subject to annual appropriation by the state legislature of such amounts. Under the PIT supplemental resolution, the authority will execute a supplement to this financing agreement, which will be related to these bonds under consideration, the debt service on the bonds, and any payments under any related rate exchange agreements. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. Are there questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Thank you very much, Adrian. Is there a second? John Carter, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. None opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
That's great.
Behind tab 5 is Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center single approval transaction summary with bond counsel Eileen Eichsler, Oric Carrington, etc., and Gabriel Louise for use lawsuit, and Matthew Bergen presenting.
Thank you. The staff report provided to the members presents a 30-year term for a bond issue in an amount not to exceed $345 million on behalf of Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, which is located in Manhattan. Projects that you're considering this morning include a portion of the construction of an ambulatory care center in Manhattan. This is the David H. Koch Center for Cancer Care, which is located at East 74th Street, and this is by the FDR Drive. This is a 760,000 square foot building, which will include clinic space for multiple oncology services, including infusion rooms, various consultative services, a radiation oncology program, a diagnostic imaging program, an interventional radiology program, and various clinical support services, as well as a conference center and administrative offices. By the time full occupancy is reached, the building is projected to accommodate over 1,300 patients, 2,600 visitors, and 1,600 staff per day. In addition, the proposed bond issue will finance equipment purchases at various locations, including the new ambulatory care center in Manhattan, the Memorial Hospital for Cancer and Allied Diseases, and for facilities located at 417 East 68th Street and 430 East 67th Street. Security features will include a general obligation of the Center Corporation, guarantees from Sloan Kettering Institute for Cancer Research and SKI Realty, Inc. The expected ratings are AA3, AA-, and AA. And looking at Memorial Sloan Kettering, this is a multi-billion-dollar corporation with over $10.6 billion in total assets, nearly $4.2 billion in total liabilities, and over $6.4 billion in total net assets. Through June 30th, 2019, an operating gain of $161.7 million was recorded on approximately $2.67 billion in total operating revenues. In addition, when looking at utilization, outpatient visits have increased recently, which is indicative of the shift in the delivery of cancer care to the outpatient setting. And the expansion of the hospital's regional network of outpatient facilities has been a major contributor to the growth in outpatient visits. Finally, there is an update to the board. And under the current plan of finance, the institution is looking to do a portion of the bond issue competitively through their financial advisors portal on a web-enabled auction platform, whereby the underwriting syndicate will bid with the lowest bidder winning the bid for that portion of the bonds.
So, Boros and Warwick are co-bond counsel. I'll talk a little bit about the plan of finance, the security for the bonds, and some proposed amendments to the loan agreement with the center. And then Gabriel will talk about the terms of the bond deal. Memorial Sloan Kettering has requested that DASNY issue bonds, as Matt said, to finance all or a portion of the cost of its new ambulatory care center and some equipment for both the center and the hospital. The bonds will be issued under a general resolution that was adopted by DASNY in 2003. There are several series of bonds already outstanding under that resolution. There's another DASNY resolution that was adopted in 2001. We're issuing under the 2003. I think they're just two series of bonds, or one series of bonds remaining under the 2001. It's expected, it's now saying the bonds will bear fixed rates to their maturity dates, but they will be issued in, I think, a term rate mode that would allow for mandatory tender when the bonds are subject to redemption. We're requesting that you adopt two series resolutions just to allow flexibility for doing one series taxable if we determine that were advantageous, or to do one in another mode, or if the competitive bid and negotiated bid were to be in two series. In any event, the anticipation is there'll be one series, but there are two adopted for that flexibility. The proceeds will be lent to the Cancer Center under the 2003 loan agreement. So the loan is to the Cancer Center. Now sort of mentioning there are several entities that sort of operate MSK. And so there have been, since 2003, guarantees provided by two of the entities, SKI Realty and the Institute for Cancer Research, Sloan Kettering Institute for Cancer Research. And then the hospital signs an inducement agreement that binds it to the provisions of the loan agreement that apply to it. Also, as was mentioned, the loan agreement and the guarantees and the inducement agreement are all unsecured obligations right now. The documents continue to have provided for certain triggering funding events. And if those events were to happen, then a collateral package is pledged by the various MSK entities for the joint benefit of bonds issued under the 01 resolution, 03 resolution, a taxable indenture that MSK has, and a bond deal they did through a New Jersey entity. And that becomes the shared collateral. In addition, under the 01, hospital receipts are pledged, and under the 03, just for the 01s, and under 03, the research center property is pledged just for the 03s. The shared collateral package excludes the research center property and the hospital gross receipts. There's an intercreditor agreement that governs how this works among the various stakeholders. Again, unsecured now with this triggering funding, if there were to be a funding event, the trigger of the pledge. The amendments to the loan agreement that are proposed are to delete the concept of the research center property being extra collateral for the 03 bonds, and to better homogenize the credit and the potential security package among the 03s, the taxable, and the New Jersey. 01 continues to have a little bit of additional security. And so the amendments are basically to delete that additional research center property and leave the rest of the security potential security package. In addition, the amendments would change a few provisions to sort of update them to more current DASNY loan agreement and more current standards. And then there's a corresponding amendment to the general resolution to delete a reference to the research center property that only has reference in the loan agreement. These amendments to the loan agreement would be effective either after all the bonds that are currently outstanding, all the 03 bonds are no longer outstanding, or when we get the requisite consents. They do not go into effect immediately. Or they do not go into effect automatically. They need either consents or the other bonds to be defeated or no longer outstanding. With that.
Thank you. The center requests that DASNY authorize and issue the bonds to finance all or portion of the cost of its ambulatory care center and major medical equipment for the ambulatory center and the hospital and related attendance facilities. The proposed series resolution authorizes the issuance of up to $345 million of authorized bonds from the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center Revenue Bonds Resolution adopted in 2003. The general resolution authorizes DASNY to issue multiple series of bonds for an unlimited amount to help the center finance or refinance the cost of one or more projects. As per the center's request, we request that DASNY adopt 2 series resolutions. Each series resolution authorizes bonds to be offered to the public through either a negotiated sale to the underwriters or a direct sale to one or more investors in a limited or private placement on terms negotiated directly with the purchasers. The center has proposed that a portion of the bonds be sold through a competitive auction process with a small group of bidders. The bidding process will be conducted by Emilio and Company through their online auction platform. Then the remaining bonds will be sold through a negotiated sale as previously discussed. Each series resolution authorizes bonds to be issued as fixed rate or variable rate, as tax exempt or taxable, and with or without credit enhancements. Currently, all the bonds are expected to be issued in one series as federally tax exempt variable rate bonds in a term rate mode to maturity. In addition, each series resolution delegates to the various officers of the authority the power to determine the terms of the bonds and also authorizes them to prepare, execute, and deliver all related documents, including but not limited to the preliminary and final official statements, bond purchase agreements, and notices of sales. Any questions?
I have a question for Matt Lee. The underlying building, the David H. Koch Cancer Center, which is being funded by the proceeds of this bond, that building is currently under construction and almost completed?
That's correct. It's nearly complete. They will begin to move staff in later this fall, open up the floors on a staged basis, and they anticipate full occupation of the building by the first quarter of 2020.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? There being none, I have a motion, please, to approve transaction. Harold, is there a second? Thank you very much. Tracy, I'm sorry. All in favor, please give an aye. Aye. Is there none opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Again, sorry for the delay.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is the report of the president. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your warm wishes and your support. Much appreciated, very poignant, very touching, and this has been very meaningful to me. Allow me to read some stuff. I'll be as brief as I possibly can. What I had always said to myself is on my last day, I learned something very early in life. When you first start, always envision how you're going to leave. Okay, because you will leave. That's just the reality. And so what I didn't want to do is dump on everybody all of the things that we have done. That speaks for itself. That speaks speak for itself in terms of the people around this table, what you have enabled us to do, what your leadership has also provided us. But I've also made provision that we would have a leave behind, right? So that is part of our history, that is part of the judgment and the decision that we on this side of the table have collectively made and presented before you, that you have approved and supported. So within your materials, there are two handouts. I'd like to acknowledge first, we provide a copy of DASNY's 2019 annual report. Throughout the report, we share some of DASNY's significant accomplishments in the last fiscal year and illustrate how our internal improvements are adding value to our partnerships in both finance and construction. But more importantly, how they come together, how they're interlinked. Second, we have prepared an accomplishments document highlighting some of the initiatives and process changes we have instituted over the course of my administration. And always thanking Dan Petrov, who's always behind the scenes. There are a lot of very important people in this organization, but Dan, always behind the scenes in terms of taking all of our collective ideas and putting it on paper. So thank you, Dan.
Do all of you know Dan Petrov? Does everybody here know Dan?
Dan,
Dan, would you stand up?
That's Dan. And what's important about Dan is the ideas gush from the head, and really, in a very palpable way, is able to bring our voices together. Just a wonderful collaborator, so thank you. The numerous improvements we have made touch upon every aspect of DASNY, but presented here are only highlights that illustrate the collective impact of these changes on our operations and ultimately serving our clients in advancing our mission. I would ask and certainly encourage all of you to read both pieces as they reaffirm the value of the work and collaboration taking place across all of DASNY. I would ask that the document in your possession, Advancing One DASNY and Strengthening Our Partnerships, be included in the minutes verbatim. It really reflects the challenges, the opportunities, and the commitment we have all collectively made at this very table, both as a board and certainly as an organization and as a staff. I think it's a very holistic perspective of many things that we have done. I will say it is an honor and it is a privilege to have been of service to you and the people of this great state as DASNY's president and CEO for these past 4.5 years. I certainly and definitely thank Governor Andrew Cuomo for not just appointing me, but challenging me that very day to say it's time for you to give back and do public service. And you have done well in your career. It is an important opportunity for you to think about how you help others. And he has provided me and us with the space to build a mission-driven public benefit corporation focused on efficiency, growth, and impact. And as the chair has said, we have come a long way together. And what does that mean? It means, and it has meant, as I've said to each and every one of you, that we are and are always asking a different set of questions. That does not, diminish our legacy, our history. It means that contextually, things are always changing before us, and we must be positioned to always ask a different set of questions, not yesterday's questions. Even those yesterday's questions have given us a profound history and a commitment to the work that we have done in this state. And so, when I spoke to you for the very first time, I said and felt very strongly that if I were to make a commitment here and work with each of you in the trenches, DASNY, which was, the big dog, we needed to be faster, stronger, more thoughtful, more engaging, and focus on the value add that we possess, this intellectual capital that is very rich, that is very robust, that the state has placed in this organization. We have been twice named the top issuer in the nation, and our construction portfolio is now valued at $7 billion. Together, we have charted the course for the future of DASNY. We have done this through our One DASNY initiative, making significant changes and redefining our capabilities around our clients and placing them at the center of our mission, listening to them, hearing them, engaging them. The goal is to ensure and expand DASNY's role as a valuable partner that responds swiftly and expertly to our clients' increasingly varied and rapidly changing needs. DASNY is a wonderful organization, it really is. And I've had the personal benefit of being inside and getting to know almost everyone here. That's just the way I've always felt, very strongly, working in organizations and trying to make sure that it's not hierarchical and that I'm accessible and you can call upon me. So I've heard it all. I've heard it all, and it's all good. It really is. I would like to thank DASNY's entire staff, who without question are among the most dedicated public servants New York State has among its employees. I also want to take a couple of minutes to personally thank those who I have worked on the leadership team. My success is a credit to the work of these folks here who have pushed, we have sat down, we've had contrarian perspectives, we have sometimes been in sync, but never consensus. Never consensus. It was collaboration and commitment and driving to an outcome. And I will say it really is an incredible group of people, and I've gotten to know each and every one very well. I will certainly start first with one of the people that, we got into the action very quickly, and that's Portia Lee, our Managing Director of Public Finance and Portfolio Monitoring. Portia, your leadership has played a significant role in DASNY becoming the #1 issuer in the country twice, and certainly the nation's leading issuer. As I always tell people, we're always #1 because New York State is always front and center in terms of what we do and how we do it. So that is hugely important. Thank you for your efforts to refocus DASNY's private client financing program, making it more efficient and seamless. Your work to amend DASNY's finance guidelines for independent institutions was and is central to helping our clients and us becoming more competitive while effectively driving efficiency and managing risk. And your work coordinating our client outreach efforts and insight in this arena have enabled DASNY, enabled us to recapture clients that have in the past turned to other financing agencies for their bond issuance needs. Montefiore Health Systems' $685 million hybrid tax-exempt taxable financing that this board approved. Very important. Catholic Health System of Western New York, and now the Rochester Institute of Technology, just to name a few. I'd also like to highlight another very important program that came out of the work that we did together, and that is the DASNY Diversity Fellowship. That's a very important program. As I say to each and every one of you, I'm still committed to this organization. While I may not be the president, I'll be outside. This is a very important fellowship that I will commit to even outside of this organization. And we have our 2 fellows here. Maria Carrasco, please stand. And Alex Surdane, please stand. This is the 2nd class. We've had a very successful engagement. So Maria is going to Jeffries for the second 6 months for tenure. Alex is going to Seabird Cisneros Shank, second 6 months of his tenure. Thank you for accepting and believing us that we could be good stewards of your faith in entering this business. So we commit to supporting, and you've got a great and talented leader, and she has a great and talented group of people. And I know Matt Bergen is here shepherding you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Managing Director of Construction, the man of few words, Steve Cool. Very few words. Thank you. Thank you for all that you've done to make DASNY's construction division more efficient and effective. And you taught me a lot about construction. You taught me a lot in terms of construction is not just bricks and mortar and dollars and cents. It's also a people business. That's something that I know. I know people businesses. And your success in advancing alternative delivery methods such as construction manager build, construction manager at risk, and the reintroduction of design build have provided our DASNY clients with innovative solutions, one of which is SUNY. It's a very important partnership to us, very important institution to this state in terms of how we educate and how we remain competitive and accessible as it relates to higher education. The successful delivery of the 263-bed Eagle Hall at SUNY's College of Rockport in 2018 using design build has helped pave the way for new opportunities, such as the 257-bed residence hall at SUNY Polytechnic Institute in Utica. In addition, through a formal selection process by the State Office of Mental Health, DASNY was recently awarded a $350 million contract to build a new Mid-Hudson Forensic Hospital. That's a wonderful collaborative effort across this organization, people just working ceaselessly in this room across many of these floors. Kudos. It is a critically important facility for OMH and a major new project for DASNY. It's one of our successes. Additionally, we have secured more than 20 new interior design projects at SUNY community colleges across the state. CUNY, our largest client, is also relying on us more than ever to deliver. We currently have more than 350 active CUNY projects with a construction value of more than $1.7 billion. We have also increased our headcount downstate with specific focus to the CUNY portfolio because we're taking more, and it is important that we deliver, because this is a very important relationship that we have. We're also expanding our presence with the State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services, OASIS, and Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, taking on several new projects with our Community Minor Maintenance Program. Thank you. General Counsel Mike Cusack, I am grateful for your collaboration, support, and understanding the needs of DASNY's businesses and our clients. When I asked you to think about not just being a lawyer and having your team do legal work, but be a counselor and a partner to all of the divisions to help them grow their franchise, you step back and you redefine the organization. Thank you for that. Thank you for also working with Squire Patton Boggs and marshaling the legal resources required to successfully launch One DASNY and help us understand, okay, the empirical basis of why we need to ask a different set of questions. That was hugely important. Together, we were able to revisit and revise policies, documentation, and internal processes to make our organization much more responsive to market demands and better align our interests with those of our clients. Chief Financial Officer Kim Maydow. Thank you, Kim, for partnering with me and pushing technology to the center of DASNY. from instituting e-payables for vendors to making sure all employees have the latest software with Office 365, your efforts have kept DASNY at the forefront, better positioning ourselves to serve our clients. Thank you also for your time spent with me on establishing lean process and for brainstorming all of the ideas on how to effectively manage risk. I also thank you for all of your hard work managing DASNY's balance sheet. Chief of Staff Caroline Griffin, thank you for being a confidant, an advocate, and a partner across every line of DASNY's business. I know it wasn't easy. Your efforts at motivating, listening, and really marshaling resources have helped bring programs and policies to fruition on many fronts. Collaborating with everyone around this table, I certainly could not have accomplished any of this without your support and commitment. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Senior Director of Procurement and OPG. So remember, we don't have an OPG organization. We've got a procurement, integrated procurement organization. Michael Clay, I thank you for all that you have done to advance our diversity and inclusion goals. Your work with DASNY's Surety Bond Training Program and the extension and expansion of Article 15A has not gone unnoticed. Other caveat that is important is people are looking at the changes that we put in place 3 years ago when we termed it resource acquisition and taking OPG and the procurement organization and bringing it together. We have integrated that as one procurement organization focused on excellence, efficiency, diversity, and inclusion. We're very pleased by that. I also look forward to Michael working with the co-director of procurement, OPG, Matt Moore, who comes out of the legal division, who I've worked with as well, on driving these important initiatives forward. Matt has got a lot of ideas. I would also like to thank my executive assistants, Cindy Robinson in Albany and Miriam Barrero. They've been wonderful engines that have kept this machine running smoothly on a daily basis. And it goes without saying, Mr. Chair and members of the board, it has really been a pleasure to work with each of you throughout my tenure. So you asked me, what's the middle initial? The middle initial, my mother calls me Pat, right? She used to call me Patty. My wife has turned that around, and she said the P is for pugnacious because the Bushels are pugnacious. And so, and she's right, and that is sometimes an asset, sometimes a liability. What I've learned in life is you live with your assets and liabilities, and you always step back and you ask questions as to, did I do this right? And there are many things that we struggled with, say, did we do this right? But I will tell you, Mr. Chair, you and I are two black men from a very different generation, a very different region of this country, very different dispositions and mannerisms. I mean, we could be so different, and we are, but we brought so much together. We really did. And I really appreciate the partnership, behind the scenes, discussions that we have had. And the thing that I think is always defining in these conversations has been your humor. The humor that you have, Al Carney's humor is to die for. And
You're very kind.
that has helped us in many respects because it has made it much more personal in terms of how do we do this together. And you have been a very good and important voice communicating with the board, helping me understand, sort of the paths that I should take and the paths I shouldn't take. I really do appreciate the support and leadership that you have given to this organization, that you continue to give, that all of you give, because you don't have to do this. I understand that. And so, thank you for all of that. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. I really, really mean that. And Vice President Michael Corrigan, last but not least. Mike, Thank you. Mike is quiet, but Mike has a big footprint. And I want to thank Mike for his 25 years of service and for managing the day-to-day operations of DASNY. It's a big organization, it really is, and there are a lot of moving pieces. And Mike always had his pocket here, his pocket there, and he knew how to communicate with folks. And he also always had the right answers in terms of when I wanted to really make changes. Mike said to me many years ago, I'm a great number two guy, I'm behind the scenes, it's your show. I said, really, Mike? And Mike is that. He exudes that. He does what he knows he needs to do, and he does it very well. He does it with excellence. And he has served many individuals, not served, but worked with, collaborated with many individuals like myself. He's an expert on knowing what resources we have and how to use them. And so, as I've always said, the ideas are great, but they're meaningless if we can't put the resources and people together. And Mike was always able to do that. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. I think the next thing is, look, we've got a resolution for Mike. Mike he's got a lot of runway that he has, and he's retiring. And I will turn over to our board chair, Al Carney, who will officially present the resolution to you.
I don't have the copy that I wanted to have here, Mike. We're working on a surprise.
Oh, lovely, I love those.
I'm fully aware. As I do sometimes, I'd like to read some of this into the record. You don't mind?
I don't mind.
It is entitled A Resolution of Members of the Board of Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, acknowledging with appreciation the service of Michael T. Corrigan. Whereas Corrigan joined DASNY on December 28, 1995, as the organization's first director of budget. Whereas, in his many and distinguished years of service, Mr. Corrigan has held 4 positions, each of increasing responsibility, including Deputy Chief Financial Officer and subsequently as Deputy Executive Director / Vice President to 4 Executive Directors, Presidents. Maybe if I put my glasses on, Michael, I'll be able to see this specific closer. There. Whereas in nearly 25 years of service to DASNY, Mr. Corrigan has served under 6 of the 11 Executive Directors / Presidents in DASNY's 75-year history and 3 board chairs. And whereas Mr. Corrigan has been instrumental in guiding DASNY through several corporate restructurings, and then several are listed here. Whereas Mr. Corrigan has been primarily responsible for overseeing day-to-day operations of the organization for many years. And whereas Mr. Corrigan has been a critical resource to DASNY executive leadership and staff on a wide range of policy and operational issues due to his calm demeanor, unparalleled problem-solving skills, and his ability to analyze situations from various viewpoints. And whereas Mr. Corrigan has fostered strong and valuable relationships with many other state entities, including the Division of the Budget, and these entities have depended upon his depth of knowledge and sage advice to help develop initiatives to best serve the citizens of the state of New York. And this is important. Whereas during Mr. Corrigan's tenure, DASNY has delivered upon its mission of expanding access to capital by issuing more than $122 billion of tax-exempt taxable bonds and paying out more than $19 billion of construction expenditures on behalf of our clients. Then there is a whereas that lists a number of the larger projects that Mike worked on. Whereas Mr. Corrigan oversaw the implementation by DASNY of several new financing programs, including the School District's Revenue Bond Financing Program, New York State Personal Income Tax Revenue Bond Program, the New York State Sales Tax Revenue Bond Program, the new Sony Dormitory Facilities Revenue Bond Program, and several others. Whereas for nearly a quarter century, Mr. Corrigan has been a trusted advisor and an invaluable resource to DASNY's board, executive leadership, and staff, all of whom have depended on his insight, advice, opinion, and judgment on a wide range of issues impacting DASNY's employees, clients, bondholders, and the state of New York. And now, therefore, be it resolved that DASNY's board pauses to reflect and appreciate the dedication, commitment, leadership, integrity, and management skills Mr. Corrigan brought to DASNY during his tenure. And be it further resolved that the board offers its sincerest thanks and best wishes for success to Mr. Corrigan in his future endeavors. This resolution should take effect immediately. Mike, it's been a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you very much.
I know that we're going to be together for a while longer, off and on. Please know that you've made a big difference to me here. I came here a number of years ago, and what I knew about DASNY, I could write on half of a piece of paper, and that was about the truth. And I knew the agency, but I knew nothing about how it operated. But for the fact that you took me under your wing, quietly, but with great presence, I would never have survived this job. So please know how grateful I am for your service to this magnificent organization. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't ask for the motion. Can we do this?
It's on
There's a
track.
way to do this by unanimous acclamation. Can we, I don't know the process for that, but
Yes.
I just do it.
let's do it. Let's do it.
Go figure it out and figure
Let's
it
do
out.
it. Unless there is an objection from any member, I'd like to affirm Mike's, this resolution and Mike's service by unanimous acclamation. And somebody will find the right words to get that in the minutes. Sarah, thank you. Michael, congratulations.
Congratulations. I am recommending the appointment of Paul G. Koopman as DASNY's new Deputy Executive Director and Vice President. This appointment is subject to DASNY board approval in accordance with DASNY bylaws. First, I would like to take a moment to thank Paul for his service. Paul has held senior roles for nearly 30 years at DASNY and 35 years of public service. These past 4.5 years, Paul worked with Ernst & Young and as project executive for the One DASNY initiative has helped us develop key process improvements throughout the organization to ensure our clients are offered the full complement of our services. Paul has personally directed several of DASNY's large strategic and legislative initiatives, such as DASNY's New Energy Performance Contracting Program, ESCO, and has been the driving force behind the SUNY Rockport Design Build and our Design Build initiatives, and certainly our $750 million Life Sciences Lab project that we're doing with the Department of Health in Albany. Paul also serves as the primary relationship manager for our largest clients, including SUNY and SUNY. Paul is also working to create opportunities for public-private partnerships, and as I said, is the project executive for the One DASNY initiative, where he acts as the change agent and also heading up the enterprise risk management team that is focused on the continuous improvement process and ways that we can ensure clients are offered the full complement of DASNY services and projects be delivered with speed and efficiency. I have worked with Paul on every major initiative that I have executed, we have executed across the tenure of 4.5 years. Many of you precede, all of you precede. And so Paul is well-known, well-respected, very objective, gets things done, and really understands how to work inside DASNY and outside of DASNY. I will also say that in many of the things that I learned here and wanted to think about, Paul was also someone who helped walk me through a lot of that. We never replace the person as the person who leaves. Mike is Mike. as all of that. Paul brings a lot of tenure, knowledge, and experience inside of DASNY, brings a very different set of skills that we will collaborate on. I will continue to make myself accessible and available, as my predecessor did for me, well into 1 year. Mike has also indicated the partial extension of his service here and even outside of DASNY, he will be accessible. Paul's a great collaborator, a great team player. You can walk around the halls, talk to anybody, tell you that. So we're not going to really miss a beat in this because he sat at the table on all of the major initiatives that we have all collaborated on. And so with that, turn it over to you.
You each have on the table a copy of a very short resolution. It speaks for itself. It will take effect. We are hereby appointing Paul G. Coogan as Deputy Executive Director and Vice President, and it takes effect on the 27th of September. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution? John, Paul, thank you. Tracy, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate by aye. Aye. As there are none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the report of the Office of Public Finance and Portfolio Monitoring Management. Leslie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind tab 7 are the standard finance reports. Just wanted to note that we priced the Cornell transaction yesterday. That will be reflected in my written report next month. Brief market update. New issue supply is currently about $288 billion year to date. That's about 7.5% higher than this time last year. Supply this week is also very high, about $10 billion. U.S. Treasuries prices have declined yesterday as reports of progress on U.S. and China trade weighed on the bond markets. Top-rated municipal bonds were also weaker across the curve, with 10-year AAA MMD up 4 basis points and a 30-year up 6 basis points from the previous day. Municipal bond funds have reported inflows of about $820 million for the week ending September 4th. This marks the 35th consecutive week of inflows into municipal bond funds. Just to give you some sense in terms of where rates are, 1, 10, and 30-year MMD have decreased 4 basis points, 22 and 32 basis points respectively since the July board meeting. And just to tell you sort of where the numbers are, 1, 10, and 30-year MMD are 1.1%, 1.36%, and 1.97% respectively. Treasuries, 10 and 30-year treasuries are 1.72% and 2.19%. So rates are really low. So we continue our One DASNY outreach efforts. We actually met with NYU yesterday. One of the things that we wanted to do, one of the things that Gerard has really instituted here is, looking at DASNY and trying to bring together sort of the collective expertise that we have here. So one of the things that we did when we met with NYU yesterday was to introduce our construction folks. So I think that was a very welcome development in terms of our relationship with NYU. We also shared with them ongoing process efficiencies and process improvements that we have here. We're way down in the weeds now, but we talked about things like improvements to our requisitioning process. But believe it or not, when we talk about these things with the clients, they're so happy because the changes that we make in terms of sort of those kinds of day-to-day processes, they really matter to them in terms of making their lives easier and that's one of the initiatives that all the clients across the board, when we talk to them about the things that we're doing, are just really clear. So we'll keep you posted on our ongoing One DASNY efforts at future meetings. And the only other thing I wanted to update the board on is we're currently, we had an RFP out on the street for underwriters, and we're currently in that review process. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Portia. Are there questions for Portia? Hearing none, we're going to go to the construction project report.
Thank you. Behind tab 8 are the 3 standard construction division reports. On the cover of the construction projects report are a number of photographs of a recently completed Bronx Family and Criminal Courthouse renovation project. The 6th floor renovation was in addition to a $56 million renovation project at the facility DASNY completed in 2017. The budget for the project was $4.4 million. The scope included a complete interior gut renovation, the 6th floor administrative child services office space, including abatement, demolition, new construction of office space, conference rooms, and a kitchenette, with new lighting, mechanical, and fire life safety systems added. DASNY procured $1 million in FF&E, including furnishings for 78 workstations. Design started in July of 2016, completed in August of 2017. H2M was the architect and engineer. Construction started in January of 18, completed in May of 19. And AFL Construction was the general contractor. STV was our CM. The challenge associated with this project was the courthouse was fully occupied for the entire duration of the project. We worked around the clock, including between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. to do work tasks and deliveries that were disruptive to the courthouse. I do have a few photos to pass around if you're interested. Behind page 3 of the report, we have 4 new projects added into our portfolio. At LaGuardia Community College, we have a $9.7 million boiler and chiller configuration project. At Queens College, a $12.8 million upgrade for Razran Hall. SUNY Purchase, a $6 million renovation of the Big House and Crossroads residence halls. And a $5.4 million OMH statewide master planning effort. In total, $34 million in new projects. Expenditures to date on page 11, prior year, $216 million. Current year, $246 million. That's an increase of $30 million year over year. Just a couple of program and project updates. On the SUNY side, 31 summer projects were completed at 10 campuses, totaling $52.3 million in summer projects. In addition to that, at 4 campuses, 4 renovation projects were completed, totaling $73 million, all in time for fall occupancy. Looking ahead to 2020, we began 3 new capital projects this past May at Kent Hall, at SUNY Plattsburgh for $16.6 million, Huntington Hall at Oneonta, $20 million, and a new residence hall at SUNY Poly for $33.5 million, totaling $70.2 million in new projects. In addition, we have 2 December starts. At SUNY Cortland, we're renovating the Smith Casey Towers. The project value is $30.2 million. And Fennell Hall at Oswego, we're beginning a 7-month project in December, renovation project totaling $12.5 million. I just wanted to make mention of SUNY Ford Hall at Oswego. This was a $23 million zero net carbon ready project that would employ deep energy retrofits utilizing the design build delivery method. We advertised for design build teams and shortlisted 4 teams, looking for proposals from those 4 teams, meeting energy goals that we set. 2 teams dropped out. We got proposals from the remaining 2 teams. Their proposals exceeded the $21 million design construction budget by about $10 million. Subsequently, we interviewed both of those firms as well as one of the firms that dropped out. And we learned a couple of things from that. They noted for us that for this deep energy retrofit design build is not the appropriate delivery method. The energy goals needed to be a bit more flexible. Liquidated damages were concerning given the high risk of the project. And the bridging documents should have been more performance-based. So we learned a number of things. We're going to go back out to the market. We're going to procure an architect and deliver the project using CMMs. On the nitrous side, we've completed the security portfolio. 78 of 78 projects are now complete. On the appliances side, 36 of 40 developments are complete. And on the quality of life side, 19 of 47 projects are complete, 12 are in construction, and 16 are in design or in procurement. The Gozer portfolio of 43 projects, 3 are complete, 5 are in construction, 15 are in procurement, and 20 are in design. South Beach Site Center, projects moving forward toward our fast approaching October 4th substantial completion milestone date. The heavy workforce, they continue to deliver the project. The craft labor staff varying between 400 and 500 daily and up to 200 on the weekends. Work includes building finishes, systems commissioning, testing, and exterior site work, in addition to punch lists and deficiencies being addressed. Our next project executive meeting is scheduled for tomorrow on site. At FIT, 75% redesign documents are due from our architect this Friday. A 2-week design review process will ensue, leading to onboard reviews with the design team, the design review team, and the subconsultants beginning September 30th. Cost estimates for the 75% redesign are due in early October. On the Life Sciences Lab, we're addressing RFI inquiries from the design build team as they prepare their formal proposal due on November 4th. And the Mid-Hudson project that Gerard spoke of earlier, we continue with the procurement process for the new hospital. We've shortlisted 5 design firms and going to move to the RFP process. In addition, we're procuring scheduler, estimator, and a CMS agent for the project. Just a couple of other items. DASNY learned the announcement that Judy Bertram, the CUNY Senior Vice Chancellor for Facilities, Planning, and Construction, will retire her post in November. Judy worked very hard on the relationship between CUNY and DASNY and the colleges that we collectively served. DASNY is awaiting word on a replacement resource for Judy at this time. And lastly, we've been asked to participate in the September 25th SUNY Residence Life Housing Administrators Conference hosted by the University of Albany. Sandy Dagler, Jody Smith-Anderson, Paul Koopman, and I will deliver the DASNY presentation focusing on green procurement, project procurement cycles, energy service contracting, and project delivery methods. And lastly, I'll deliver a short presentation seeking board approval for DASNY to enter into contracts with PM Web, construction industry software application vendor, for the purchase, installation, and ongoing support and maintenance of a replacement project management system for our current contract management system. Just some brief history. DASNY purchased Primavera's Expedition project management software application in 2000, implemented it in 2001, and went live on the system in 2002. At the time, Primavera, a small software developer from Philadelphia, was a leading player in construction industry software with application offerings dealing with all aspects of design and construction projects, including contract administration and scheduling. DASNY successfully implemented Expedition along with P6, Primavera's scheduling offering, and integrated construction-specific applications with DASNY's ERP system, JD Edwards. DASNY started with Expedition version 8.5. We're now on version 14.2. Along the way in 2008, Oracle Systems acquired Primavera, took over product development in support of both Expedition and P6. Expedition was renamed Contract Manager. Support and new version releases continued under Oracle, as well as functionality improvements to the application itself. However, in July of 2016, Oracle announced that they were discontinuing any future releases of Contract Manager, forcing users such as DASNY to decide to move away from the product or limp along with Contract Manager, receiving only technical support from Oracle. Given the stability of the project, DASNY kept our options open at the time of the announcement, but we knew we were approaching a crossroads with Oracle. In 2016, later that year, we decided to begin the process of replacing Oracle's contract manager system. Professional services selection was undertaken to consider replacement products that not only provided contract manager and P6 functionality, but also enhanced functionality that DASNY desired, including workflow development, electronic third-party transactions, mobile computing, enhanced reporting and dashboarding, and third-party niche software application integration. At the same time, the market for construction industry software applications was contracting, with larger players acquiring smaller specialty vendors and applications. It was a tricky time to enter the market, but a necessary time for DASNY. DASNY's first step in our pursuit of a CM replacement system was to engage with construction industry expert with knowledge of the software vendor and product landscape that were a fit for a new project management solution. Following a professional services selection, DASNY executed an agreement with Stellar Associates from New York City in 2017 to provide consulting services associated with the replacement of Oracle's contract manager application. Stellar's contract was three-phased and included a review of DASNY's current state, the definition of DASNY's future state, and a competing product evaluation and recommendation phase. DASNY's professional services unit released a request for qualifications for the CM replacement software in July 2018. We received 11 responses, and our selection committee shortlisted 5 firms to move to the request for proposal phase. DASNY began the RFP phase by requesting proposals from 5 shortlisted firms in January of 19. We received proposals from 4 of those firms in March of 19. Interviews and demonstrations were conducted the last 2 weeks of March. Following interviews and demonstrations by 4 of the 5 firms, PM Web surfaced as the leading vendor in the construction industry software space. We next checked references supplied by PM Web and found those references to be satisfied with both the vendor and their products. DASNY moved into a deeper product investigation phase of PM Web's offerings, deploying a group of subject matter experts to conduct a site visit in a local branch of Goldman Sachs who utilized PM Web for all construction-related activities. The site visit resulted in a high level of satisfaction for DASNY, and as a result, we moved to our next step, which had Ron Gassetti, Ken Nadeau, and myself visiting the vendor's headquarters in Boston on June 26th. We left that meeting confident that the vendor was the most qualified and offered the best chance for success for the replacement of Oracle's contract manager application, as well as realizing efficiency gains through the use of PM Web's functionality-rich, technically advanced product. DASNY next went to work on reviewing PM Web's cost proposal. We sought to better understand upfront costs, one-time costs, versus reoccurring lifetime costs such as maintenance and support. We conducted several negotiation sessions beginning in early August, seeking discount pricing from PM Web's original cost proposal that would be more in line with our application purchase, installation, and long-term maintenance budgets. We exited those negotiation sessions receiving discount pricing that resulted in an expenditure by DASNY within our PM system replacement budget of approximately $1.5 million. We will begin implementation immediately following the execution of our agreement, anticipated in October of this year. Implementation will take between 9 and 15 months. We will include a review of process efficiency gains, which we have already begun to identify, tailoring the system to meet DASNY's needs, input of process workflows, creating required and desired reporting and dashboarding output, data migration, conversion of existing data, and training and live processing strategies. It is possible additional phases of implementation may be decided upon depending on what we go live with on day 1. Our PM system will be hosted by LoadSpring, a Boston-based manager of hosted software solutions. LoadSpring today hosts DASNY's Oracle Contract Manager solution, so the organization is no stranger to us. Our CM application runs on LoadSpring's servers, and we are able to operate our construction division's back office without interruption, obtain access to data, and we receive excellent support from LoadSpring. The benefits of moving to PM Web solutions are many, including improvement of DASNY's processes, additional functionality beyond Oracle's CM system, a system that's fully configurable and flexible and tailoring to meet DASNY's needs, the ability to update the tailoring of the system with future DASNY process changes, automated workflow definition and establishment, increased electronic collaboration with DASNY's customers, vendors, and contractors, automated processes using electronic transactions over paper transactions, mobile field computing opportunities, interaction with third-party niche applications, user-based defined reporting and dashboarding, enhanced disaster recovery and security functionality, interaction with the Morpheus Technology Group, which is a vendor that helped us through the original implementation of Expedition, future functionality development with user-suggested input, and internal software application consolidation, meaning we've got a bunch of systems today that'll come together using PMWeb's functionality. So in summary, DASNY has selected PMWeb as the solution provider for the replacement of Contract Manager. Today we seek approval from DASNY's board to move forward and formally engage PMWeb to purchase their suite of software modules and begin the implementation process. We are seeking your approval to enter into a contract with PMWeb for a total value of approximately $1.5 million. Any questions?
Steve, anybody have questions for Steve?
Are we sort of a good example of a target customer for PMWeb? Are we the market that they cater to, or do they have other products that, for smaller or larger? There is nobody larger than us, but smaller than us.
PMWeb only serves the construction industry.
Yeah.
So the product that we're seeking to purchase is naturally a construction industry type product. They have customers that vary in size,
yeah,
and project sizes from very small to very large. And we asked them where we fit in. They said we're on the large side, but we're not their largest.
Okay.
So,
all right. But they have smaller customers too. That's interesting.
they have individual construction companies that use the system.
Yeah. And is it the same system or a stripped down version?
The same system.
Okay.
The system is module based, so there are a number of modules that you can implement.
Yeah.
So some customers, I'm sure, implement more or less than others.
Is the cost of the data migration driven by Oracle being sort of proprietary about how they store data, or?
Not at all.
Okay.
We are able to access the data, and the data migration will be done away from Oracle.
And if we chose another provider 3-5 years down the line, same thing?
Yes, yes. We can get to this data.
Yeah.
We can migrate it. In fact, we'll be going after this data just to get our reporting and dashboarding output on a regular basis.
And how does it interact with our CMs? The whole.
We actually today, using Contract Manager, allow our CMs into our system. We give them a user ID and password.
Right.
They're secured to use just a certain portion of Contract Manager. That same strategy will be
Does it all
used
flow like the RFIs flow through, and
They do.
you tie in with the architects? It's like a.
They do.
It's like
Yeah,
a
we actually have architects and CMs using our system today. We train them, we give them user ID and passwords, and we allow them into a certain amount of the product to do data input for us.
So you don't have to have endless phone calls. They can just punch it right in.
We just wait for them to do our data entry for us.
Yeah.
Where does the scheduling fit in? The scheduling, like Primavera used to do all the same thing?
Yeah, actually Primavera had two products. They had Expedition and P3, which became P6 eventually. P6 being the scheduling product, and
It's funny, like that used to be the product everybody used.
Everybody used it. We were high on them, but these vendors are getting bought up left and right. But those two systems did not have really a formal integration. But scheduling actually is included within PMWeb's module suites, so it is integrated naturally.
Thanks, Steve. Kim, did you have anything you wanted to add to Steve's presentation?
I would just like to briefly clarify that what Steve pointed out, that the contract value is approximately 1.5 million. We have been having continued discussions with PMWeb since we sent you the board memo. We have clarified some of the pricing with them. It caused a slight increase in the numbers that we put into the memo. That enables us to defer purchasing the majority of the licenses closer to our go-live date rather than during the implementation when they basically would sit there unused and we would have to pay maintenance.
And
So
when does it
while-
renew? Like, what's the license term?
Excuse me?
What's the license term? Because these things, you get them on the renewals, they sort of.
Well, the license is a one-time fee, and then
Okay.
there's an annual maintenance, 20% maintenance, and the contract that we have is for 2 years worth of that maintenance. So what we want to do, so we're looking at 100 licenses, 25 during implementation, the other 75, we wanted to wait until we're closer to going live so that we don't pay the support and maintenance costs until we're ready to use them.
I didn't think the maintenance looked too bad.
No, it's actually lower
Yeah.
than what we're paying today, and that's largely because we're looking to use concurrent licenses rather than named user licenses in nearly all instances.
And 20% is a fairly standard
Yeah.
rate that
Yeah.
construction industry vendors charge on these.
They did agree to a lot of back and forth on how we were gonna price that maintenance in order to capture some savings for DASNY.
Michael, you and your staff have taken a look at this contract. You are comfortable that it meets DASNY's needs appropriately and effectively?
That is correct. We are using the contract form that was overhauled with a lot of effort for the Flux grants management software. So we did a very thorough effort at that point in time, and this will be a tailored version of that.
Okay.
Very, very comfortable.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you. Are there other questions here?
I just had one question just about the cost. Is that, given the timeline, is that in this year's operating budget or the bulk of it hit the following year?
It would not impact this year's operating budget. The cost that will incur this year would be funded out of reserve. The implementation, and when we get to operating costs, when we're developing the 2021, we'll have better insight into the timeline for the implementation and what we would need to do in terms of overlap between contract manager and PM Web and incorporate that in the budget.
Are there other questions? You've seen the resolution. And if there are no questions, particularly from Mike, with regard to the contract itself, then we have a motion, please, to. Thank you very much, Jerry. John, thank you for the second. John Gardner, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Michael, do you have?
3 very short updates. First of all, on the Underwriters Council front, Chuck Katz has left Pulcinelli and has joined the firm of Barnes and Thornburg. Our legal RFP leaves the door open for underwriters to be added and subtracted from the list throughout time. It does not require board approval, and I'll note that that's because the Underwriters Council doesn't represent us. The Underwriters Council represents the underwriters, and we are clearing them for cost, competency, and conflicts reasons. Is basically what our review is limited to. They've gone through the process, and we've welcomed them to the underwriter panel. Second update is on Doug Seaton, who we've all met before, and it has to do with earlier just before the beginning of the summer, Chris and Jeff left Squire Patton and joined Nixon Peabody, and they are now jointly requesting that we allow Doug Seaton to work with them on appropriate transactions. This will be neutral to Nixon. It doesn't change Nixon's relationship with Maroos that currently exists, and it will be neutral to Squire Patton. If Squire Patton at some point wants to ends up representing us on a transaction, Doug would remain eligible to be the MWBE partner there. That however will require board review, so I'll be bringing that up next month.
Say that one again? You lost me on that one.
Which
Doug,
one?
Doug was where and where is he?
So if you remember, Chris Chris and Jeff were at Squire Patton Boggs when they were helping us with One Dasney, and
Right.
they just before the summer joined Nixon Peabody.
I got that one.
So they want to be able to continue on deals that they're working with, to be able to have the option to work with Doug C. So all we would be doing is
For the work with
preserving
the,
that.
okay.
That's it. It's just a slight modification. So we'll bring some detail on that next month. And
Just
then-
one clarification, it's Drohan Lee that currently partners with Nixon.
I apologize. You're right. I apologize. And third update, and it's reflected in the board documents, but Joe asked that we make sure we double check on this. Mary Ellen Ilya has now officially departed state ed, and acting is none other than Beth Berlin. So you will see her name on the materials and everything else going forward. We all remember Beth from her time when she was a member here. And that concludes my report.
Michael, thank you. One question. The request that we're getting from Chris and Jeff to use Doug in appropriate situations, will that, if you would like to do that, will that affect our relationship with Drohan Lee?
No, that relationship is between other partners at Nixon and Andrew Hanley, and we've had this situation before where people move from to firm.
Got it. All right. Questions for Mike? If there are none, Kimberly?
I would just like to point out one addition that we made to my financial report this month. That was on page 4 as it related to the new reserves that the board established in the summer of 2016. Wanted to give a little bit of additional insight for you in terms of where the money has been expended. For the healthcare transformation reserve, $5.5 million was established in the reserve. Approximately $1.4 million has been used for DASNY labor in support of hospital restructuring. $4.6 million remains uncommitted. For the evolution reserve, $4 million was put into the reserve. Approximately $1.35 million has been in support of One DASNY. An additional $1.1 million for DASNY labor for succession planning, and $1.6 million remains uncommitted. For the $3 million in the 21st Century Reserve, the two largest uses have been for our website redesign, our external website, as well as a consultant that we have been using for the last several years for a variety of application development and other support. We have used approximately $500,000 of the $3 million, and about $600,000 remains uncommitted. So we will continue to update the uses and the higher level of granularity that we're now providing in the future. Gardner, it looks like you might have a question.
I do. So when we spend the money on the new construction software package, for my simple analysis, how much we got left in reserves?
First, the PM Web implementation,
Yeah.
that is not part of any of these 3 reserves.
Okay.
We
I heard
fund
reserves
that
in the
out of-
presentation, but that's
Right,
okay.
we're using the reserve for replacement, that's where our general depreciation goes. Contract manager has been depreciated over its life, and so essentially we've been building up funds to pay for its anticipated replacement at some point, so that's a natural use for that. Let me go over to my trustee board book. All the reserves, we include the current balances in here, so have in excess of 30 million.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Is there any other business?
And let me, one further item. The cost that we had, the 1.5 million,
Yeah.
that had been previously committed
Good.
in the reserve for replacement.
Am I on there? Is there any other business come before the board? And if not, before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I just want to say this. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
have a motion, please, to adjourn? Gerard, thank you very much. Is there a second? All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
What's that?
Yeah, it is.